Welcome to Schlocking Tales, kids, the show where we take a look at some of your favorite stories and see what life lessons we can learn from them. I, of course, am Mr. Mike. Let's get our thinking caps on and let's start the show. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to fall in love someday? That's kind of exciting, right? But it can be scary too, because what if you lose that person? I mean, we all have our own special ways of dealing with things, right? And today's story is about a special guy who had his own special way of dealing with loss. It's called Dracula. Once upon a time in 1462, a bunch of Turks marched through Europe and invaded Romania. They didn't realize that a Romanian knight known as Dracula would rise up to meet them on the battlefield. Dracula was scared because he loved his wife so much. But he led his men to war and they fought and fought. And whenever they would kill a Turk, Dracula would have his men stab a long stick through them. That means he impaled them. Can you say that word? Impale. That's like when you shove something sharp into something. It's kind of like when you stab your food with a fork. He was just doing that to people. The Turks were very angry at Dracula. They sent Dracula's wife a note saying they killed him. After seeing that, she decided that she couldn't go on and she threw herself in the river. Dracula returned to find his wife lying there dead, and the priest tried to comfort him by saying that his wife was already burning in hell. But that didn't even help. Dracula stabbed his sword into this cross and it started to bleed. I wonder what Dracula did next. Here's a helpful tip. If something starts bleeding around the house, don't drink it. Have a grown-up help you clean that up. That would have saved Dracula a lot of trouble. Later in the year 1897, there lived in London a man named Jonathan Harker, who was engaged to a lovely woman named Mina. He would have to leave London for a while because he was hired to arrange some real estate for a count who lived in Romania. Jonathan went to Transylvania and the count sent a carriage to greet him. The wolves came along too. They went through the woods and along the mountains to the count's castle. Jonathan finally met Count Dracula. Dracula told Jonathan during dinner that he would have to stay for a whole month. Jonathan could tell that there were some pretty strange things about Dracula and his castle. He decided to do a little exploring. Eventually, he found his way into this big room with a big bed. And then Dracula's brides were suddenly there too. Dracula's brides sure were pretty as Jonathan gazed into their eyes. They were touching and kissing him. If you're ever hungry like Dracula's brides, you can make a list for Mom and Dad to take to the store. Tell Mom and Dad what you like to eat, and then you won't have to worry about being hungry. Dracula secretly wanted Jonathan's fiancée Mina, so he went to London and kept Jonathan a prisoner in his castle. That ride to London was kind of rough. Dracula kept eating everyone on the ship, and when he got to London, Dracula immediately transformed into a wolf. He managed to get Mina's friend Lucy to get out of bed to meet him outside. Mina went to look for Lucy.
Lucy!
What kind of animal would you be? For being a vampire, Dracula got around in the daytime just fine. He wore his special glasses and he looked like a young man again. He was convinced that Jonathan's fiancée Mina was his wife from centuries ago, now born again. He tried to talk to her, but she rejected him. It can be scary to meet new people sometimes, huh? If you're meeting somebody new, remember to just be yourself. People will like you for exactly who you are. And if they don't, we'll figure out what they like and be that too. That way everyone will always like you. Dracula eventually got Mina to go with him to the movies. He got her alone and was about to bite her on the neck. But then a wolf showed up, and while everyone else was scared, Dracula showed Mina how to pet the wolf. Meanwhile, back in Transylvania, Dracula's brides kept draining Jonathan's blood, keeping him weak but not killing him. Jonathan decided that he was going to escape. He fell from Dracula's castle and found his way to a church. He sent Mina a letter telling her that he's okay and she should come meet him and they could get married. Do you ever like to save some of your food for later? Well, by keeping Jonathan alive, Dracula's brides were able to feed on him a little bit every day. If you eat slowly and you save some for later, that's another way you can always have something to enjoy. Mina's friend Lucy had been acting strange ever since Dracula bit her. She would do this thing where she would start acting really sick, and then really sweet, and then really menacing, and sometimes she would be so sick, sweet, and menacing that her shirt would almost fall off. Everyone sure was worried about her. I visit sick women a lot. Just saying, I do my part to help out when I can afford to go, you know. Her fiancé Arthur and his friends didn't understand what all these strange things meant, but their friend Dr. Van Helsing could tell that this was the work of a vampire. Mina got that letter Jonathan sent and felt that she had to go see him and get married. And when she sent word of this to Dracula, he was very angry. Dracula was so enraged that he changed into a wolf and bit Lucy a third time. Now everyone was sad because it looked like Lucy was dead. But Dr. Van Helsing knew she wasn't really dead yet. He said they should go to her coffin at night and see for themselves. When they opened her coffin, she wasn't there. Where could Lucy be, they thought. Let's see if you can find Lucy. Was she outside? Was she next to her coffin? Was she on the stairs? Great job! She was on the stairs holding this kid. Not to worry, they rescued the kid, used this crucifix to get Lucy back in her coffin, and drove a stake in her heart and cut her head off. But before they did that, she did this. After Mina and Jonathan were married, they returned to London. Dracula snuck into Mina's room late at night so he could make her a vampire too. At first Mina wasn't sure, but then she remembered her past life as his bride and wanted him to do it. Then Jonathan and the others showed up, and this happened.
Mina! Light! More light!
Van Helsing figured out that Dracula was heading back to his castle and they raced to get back there in time. They wanted to stop him so he couldn't finish transforming Mina into a vampire. When they finally caught up to him, they slit his throat and stabbed him in the heart. Dracula knew he was going to die and he staggered into the chapel where he first became a vampire. Mina came in and they shared one last kiss. Then she cut his head right off so he could finally be at peace. And then Mina wasn't a vampire anymore. The end. Boy, I sure learned a lot from the story of Dracula. I feel much more prepared to be in a stable relationship and then lose that relationship now. How do you feel? Do you feel more ready for that? I hope so. Let's review what we learned today. This is what the word impale means. If you see something bleeding, have a grown-up help you clean it up. Don't drink it. Make a list for mom and dad to take to the grocery store. Save some food for later. When you really love someone, there's nothing you wouldn't do for them. If you'd like to learn more about being a good person and losing stable relationships, you could like, share, and subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments what you learned today. This is Mr. Mike saying, just be yourself. You're the one and only ever special you, and just be yourself, and remember to sprinkle in what everybody else likes too. That way everyone will always like you. Okay, bye.